I think Tower Bridge was a good one.
Yeah.
Because I was harnessed up under the parapets, looking up at the bridge deck like, well, this is never going to happen again.
Hi, my name's Phil Hannabuss, and this is the Common Ground podcast, brought to you by Asite. Today I'm joined by Emily Heritage, Assistant Project Manager for FM Conway, who's going to be talking about her life, her movement from motherhood into a career in construction. You're now working with FM Conway, Assistant Project Manager. How long have you actually been with them now?
Well, I've just come into my 4th year with them, so I've completed 3 years. I'm in my 4th year.
And what did you start as then? So when you did that first application, was that straight into an assistant project manager role, or?
When I first joined FM Conway, I joined as a design coordinator, which was a bit more, it was a more desk-based job, like office-based job. And it was heavily sort of around coordinating designs between stakeholders, clients, designers, architects, making sure that they were, good enough to then become construction schemes. But I think I very quickly identified that I was interested in the sort of more operational side of the business, and that being on site and the challenges that happen whilst actually building some of these schemes. So I was given some opportunities to gain a bit of experience on site.
Yeah, so when obviously you first made that application and it was for a more of an office-based role, and you'd had that period of like looking after the kids for a long time and then being based in an office, was that kind of a hard pull, or was that more of a, actually this is a bit of time for me now type scenario?
I actually, and I still do really enjoy going to the office because it's like, right, I'm out of here. You get to be, a different version of yourself, I suppose, when you're at work. And I think actually it's a nice balance to have when you're sort of, in the office a few days a week with your colleagues, and you get to, have conversations with adults, work on some things that, have value to your life value to you in a different kind of capacity. And compared to obviously, when you're at home and with your kids and your family, and it's different. So I do like having that kind of dual
persona type scenario.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing as well, because obviously construction's very male dominated. So how did you find that transition from what you were doing into kind of the construction male dominated role? How did you find that kind of from your perspective? It
was a bit of a shock, I won't lie. I think, but I've been very fortunate that the working culture that I've been introduced to has been very positive. There's a lot of, I work with a lot of great people. People have different situations, and we've all got different, needs, and we're all different in that way. So it's adapting the workplace to make sure that people have that sort of work-life balance and are able to do the things that they need to do at home, and be able to deliver as well in these successful projects. So
you got your first site visit, and then you got the inductions and the health and safety aspects of it. Was that quite of a daunting thing, or was that kind of an excitement? How did that kind of feel the first time you went on site and kind of saw that induction process, if you will?
I've actually worked on some really interesting schemes. We do some work around like Waterloo Bridge. I've been into the bascules of Tower Bridge, done some really interesting stuff that you wouldn't typically, being a tourist around London, you wouldn't get to see. So it has been very exciting, and I've really enjoyed getting into it. And there's nothing really that I've kind of gone, oh God, got to learn, got to do this. I've kind of found it all very enjoyable, and I think that's what surprised me most about working in construction, that I found it so exciting. And I look forward to coming to work, because every day is a bit different, and that's probably a bit of a cliche, but every day is different, and you never know what's going to happen. And one day I think, oh, this is what I've got planned today, and then that completely goes out the window because you've got to go and respond to something that's happened. So it's from that perspective, I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Did you feel there was more tech or less tech than you imagined in construction?
Yeah, way more. I think I didn't have anything to compare it to. I guess I didn't really know what to expect. But there's a huge amount of tech. I think, particularly certainly from my experience with FM Conway, I think there's been a lot of opportunities for innovation and trying new technologies to try and better the ways that we're doing things. And still now we're trying different things, trying different sort of softwares and to improve the way that our projects are delivered. And
so have you seen that a lot in the last 4 years in particular during your transition for FM Conway as well through the different roles? Have you seen like the change in tech and what's kind of taking over in terms of some of that as well?
I've been quite lucky to be involved in a lot of the rollouts of some of the tech that, particularly, so I work in our structures division. So the division kind of sort of is quite autonomous in the way that it works. So we'll kind of go out and look at technology that specifically applies to the way that the structures division deliver certain projects. It's been really interesting to be involved in some of those processes. And for example, when I first started at FM Conway, Asite was one of my sort of my strategic tasks to try and roll it out across the division and get people subscribed and using it, and developing some like internal training, working with Asite to get things to a place where the usability was there.
And in terms of the projects that you touched on, some of the projects that you've worked on, what have been your kind of standout experiences for some of those projects that you've had?
I think Tower Bridge was a good one. Yeah, because I was harnessed up under the parapets, looking up at the bridge deck, like, well, this is never going to happen again. But funnily enough, that was to survey the mud tanks that were under the bridge. So very kind of bit grim, really, looking into these big tanks of mud and grit and all the rubbish that comes off of the bridge and into the drainage system. So it's quite interesting. But probably one of my standout schemes is the public convenience refurbishment. So we've been refurbishing a number of sort of public toilets essentially within the West End of London, working with the City of Westminster, and we've refurbished 2 to date, and we're currently on site with a further 2. And one of them just down the road from here, actually, Green Park Station. And I think it's been really interesting to see the amount of interest that it's gotten from, especially from like inside the council. We did like a launch event for the first toilet at Victoria Embankment, and it got a huge amount of interest from the councillors. So
not necessarily from a HR perspective, but obviously I'm going to use the word onboarding. But how did you find that kind of onboarding process of when you stepped into the role from the first time? Did you shadow people? How did you kind of transition that period as well?
As I say, with my role originally being quite desk-based, office-based, there was this bit of separation, I suppose, between me and the people out on site. So I found some opportunities to try and get out more, and some of the schemes that I was working on, so I think one of the schemes at the time was like a refurbishment of an underpass, installing big jet fans basically into an underpass. So I worked quite heavily on sort of like one of the initial phases of that. So actually then being able to go out and see those projects coming to life, let's say, was a big turning point for me. So it then sort of showed me, right, there's a lot more to this. So yeah, I did get an opportunity to shadow, and I think I built I've now got a good network, I think, across the business, which has helped me considerably in growing in my confidence and realisation of what's possible, what's out there, and potentially where I want to go with my career. So that has definitely, played a role.
And that network that you talk about, is that kind of a good mixture between males and females, or is it?
Yeah, I'd say so. So at FM Conway, we have like a female forum, so we have like a good network of female leaders, and I think it's reasonable to say we've got good female role models within the business as well. And I think that's really important to see, because it does aid that confidence, that sort of empowerment in what potentially I could do if I wanted to. You know, it's possible for a woman, you know, even like, you know, women with families, young children, to still have these opportunities to be in these leadership roles. Like, why not? So yeah, I do have a very good network of women. I think it's really important.
And you started to document some of your FM Conway journey as well, haven't you?
Talk about this. Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. Like, you got your own little Instagram. I can't remember what it's called now. Is it?
It's Asite Diaries.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I obviously I'm not always on site, but I try to document the times when I am on site and some of the bits of schemes that we're developing. And it was a bit of a blog, really, and a bit of a sort of a way of encouraging, maybe trying to influence, reach other women that, you know, might not know necessarily what it's like on site, or what those sort of the possibilities might be of working in construction, and that there is room for women in the industry. And that was the ambition anyway. It's still quite small fry.
No, I think it's really good, because obviously there is still a historical stigma associated to construction, and you, the minute you mention builder, and then you think of that, you know, wolf whistling as you walk past site type scenario. I'm assuming you're not experiencing that in the professional environment, of course, but there is still that element that's what people think of when they think of construction, isn't there? So I think you're kind of trying to change that perception that there is a different side to construction, as it were. Yeah,
I suppose people will always have stereotypes when they still do have stereotypes around construction and what's expected from construction. Yeah, I suppose it's just about breaking those down. Education is a huge part of it. I think there's a lot to be said for early years education in terms of, you know, getting women into the industry.
Was that one of the big surprises for you when you walked into construction, these other hidden roles within the sector that probably aren't talked about as much as maybe they should be?
Yeah, definitely.
Was that?
There's a huge amount of, obviously, when people think of construction, you think of sites, you think of construction sites, and of course, but there's a lot obviously that goes on. There's a lot of other things that go on and go into that, and you know, whether it's like the budgeting, the people, you know, bringing in the right people to work within the industry. So there's a huge amount of other roles that are involved in creating that picture that people see, where, you know, you built something great, but there's a huge amount of work that goes into that, and it's not just the people that are on site. So yes, it was quite eye-opening to realise that, okay, this is a whole network of different people doing loads of different things behind the scene that you do not see. Yeah. You know, from like health and safety management to the budgeting, the finance, to there's all sorts of things that go on that people just don't realise.
I think that's the thing. There is so much in construction over and above the typical trades, and as you say, project management, design coordination, those kind of roles as well. And it's also not just like marketing or whatever. Do you know what I mean? There's so much involved in that. So if you had some like key lessons that you've learned over your period in that transition, if we was to go back to like that application process all the way through to that, what lessons have you learned that you could probably share, as you touched earlier on, your influencer role? I
think especially for women, like if I'm thinking about this as specifically as a woman coming into this, and like trying to step into a new, I suppose, persona or stepping into a new role, I think the thing for me would be, as much as you are working out if this company, this role is going to be right for you, or if as much as you can deliver the requirements that they are asking for, is it right for you? Yeah. And I think it's not being afraid of having those conversations of saying, this is how it would work for me, and applying those and showing that it is possible, you know, for cultures to change and perhaps be a bit more, have a bit more equity in the way that they expect things to be delivered.
So you talk very eloquently about a career in construction now, and obviously that transition of where you were and looking how you've changed over the past 4 years. What does the future hold, and where do you see that going? You talked earlier about the career path that you kind of can see forging. How are you kind of navigating that in terms of where you want to go?
I definitely see myself with FM Conway for the foreseeable. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there to learn and grow and move sideways if I wanted to into other areas of the business. I think definitely construction is something I'm going to stick with. I've invested a lot of time and effort into some of the processes and understanding some of the ways that things are done.
You guys obviously do use Asite in terms of FM Conway, so thank you for that. And how do you find that being able to keep abreast of the information? You talk well then about how you manage that and identify that things haven't been updated and stuff. How do you manage that kind of documentation from those two areas as well, making sure that people are working to the same information all the time?
So I think that's something that obviously Asite does very well, is helps kind of manage that document revisions. It's probably one of the biggest things that I've found in my role, coming from design coordination in particular, is that in terms of design, when you get a design package, you could be talking like hundreds of different designs of different details, etc. And to be able to manage revisions coming in, changes coming in, what Asite has allowed us to do is very quickly apply revisions to a document, and to ensure that our site teams are working from the correct revisions of things. If you're relying on emails or dropping things into like chats, it's very easy to suddenly have an incorrect revision circulating around your site, and that is exactly what you don't want. So if you can confidently say that our teams are working from a single source of truth, which Asite allows us to do, it makes everything a lot more, gives you a lot more confidence in the way things are being delivered.
And you were talking about your element of, obviously one of the elements you did is the adoption of Asite as well. Were you surprised that people weren't using it before, and was there a bit of a light bulb moment where people go, oh, actually, this is really useful?
So it was very new when I first started. I was given the task. I was probably one of the first people to be signed up to Asite within the division, within the company actually. So it was quite interesting to suddenly see what all of these what these platforms could what this platform could offer. But where I was obviously still learning a lot about the industry, I found that it's probably been a bit of a journey where we've started to realise, or I've certainly started to realise, ways in which Asite can help improve the ways that we are doing things through things like forms, to help standardise the way we are doing things, and control the quality of the way that we are doing things, producing repetitive documents where you, as part of a site pack, for example, where you might have the same template for something. It only takes one person to change a template, and then suddenly it's gone. It spirals out of control. So having a tool like Asite would allow us to again create a single source of truth for a document, which then can be rolled out across multiple sites. And
were you familiar with these kind of tools in your public sector work that you were doing prior to that, or not at all? It was brand new when you walked into construction? This element of common data environment, single source of truth.
Yeah,
it was all brand new.
Like, what's a CD?
Yeah.
It was a very new experience for me, and quite sort of quite intense thing to be thrown into and to be a part of. Then helping to roll it out across the business and engaging lots of people in that change is it's obviously very important, but also a challenge in itself. People obviously had certain ways of working with their documentation, but you very quickly see flaws in the way that was being managed. And what Asite has enabled us to do is make a lot of our documentation so much secure. These projects are now so much more locked down and secure than they were previously, still being able to give the right people access, but also being able to manage that access. It's very different if you're working from a file on your desktop.
Is that something you've seen change over the last 4 years then? Because obviously you've been with FM Conway now for that period. So is that something you've seen more security of your company's IP, if you will?
Yes, I think that's the ambition. And Asite has definitely enabled us to manage that in a way, to be able to secure documentation and also control the way that documentation is being distributed. We work on a lot of schemes where public or local authorities are involved, and there's a lot of scenarios where if you're working on let's say a vehicle mitigation system that's designed to prevent that has come about because of terrorism, it becomes quite a sensitive matter, and the designs need to be kept quite secure. So schemes like that is, having Asite enables us to keep that, I suppose,
protected.
Yeah, that's a good word.
And generally, the tech was kind of you kind of felt comfortable with it when you started using it on sites and so on. And I know you use a plethora of different technologies, but obviously, from your perspective, you wasn't daunted by the use of technology within that role.
No, I think we saw it as an opportunity, which a lot of people, I believe, have. We've all taken it in our stride, really, to try and improve the way that things are being done and the way that we manage our sites. So it was quite refreshing, to be able to walk on site with a tablet and drawings on the tablet, than having probably out of date copies of a drawing on an A4 piece of paper.
And are you involved quite heavily in that digitisation then? Is that something that you're kind of driving in terms of that mentality of digitising your processes a lot more than maybe you were when you started?
There's a huge ambition to digitalise as much of site documentation as we possibly can, for many reasons, like we've already discussed, to ensuring that we're always working from the most recent revision of things, and that we're all working from this. There's a standardisation across the business, which means we're all working to the same standards, and the same quality. So, yes, I think it's definitely something that I think as a division we are working on and trying to improve. There's a lot of stuff going on sort of behind the scenes to make that happen.
And how are you finding that adoption of that tech then through those people that you're kind of getting involved? Are they kind of embracing it, or are they a little bit tentative?
It's a mix, I'd say. Yeah, I think you're always going to have people that are sort of set in the way that they do things and quite comfortable with, things not changing.
Yeah.
So technology is always going to be a bit of it's always going to be, I suppose, adopted in different ways and different capacities. Some people are likely to push back on it, while others are probably, more are willing to sort of take it on and embrace it. So it's just managing that, and I suppose setting a standard and just being able to demonstrate the positives that can come from digitalising these methods and the way that we do things.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
Thanks for having me.
No, you're very welcome, and we'd love to have you back sometime. We'll do a follow-up because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people wanting to reach out after this. So thank you very much.
No worries, thank you.